Greetings to all the coordinators in the living and the now, the living men and women called from the original and separate geographical states of Transvaal, Free State, Natal, and the Cape as a whole that made up the country now called South Africa. It is our intent to unite the living men and women of these original states who wish to serve into an assembly for the common and separate interest of all the living men and women in our country, to bring life a self-governing union of living men and women, for living men and women, and by living men and women. Today we are here to call to session the South African Assembly, a land and soil jurisdiction, peaceable assembly of men and women to serve their fellow emancipated brothers and sisters. On the 26th of July 2023, the first call to session of the Assembly was done. With imperfect knowledge of the process and with men and women that would ultimately not stand forward to bring the Assembly to its feet, the Assembly did not form, grow, and stand. Today we are here with people who did not accept the setback as final, who have labored tirelessly and who have seen to the birth of a new, healthy, and growing Assembly. Living men and women who have a vision for the future of service to the golden rule, service to the people, and who know that the true king of this world is no man. The call to session, adjusted for South Africa and its unique situation. A committee of coordinators representing the originals may call the General Assembly. In the present instance, in the year 2024, we are now called to assemble, and all four original states have answered. This has been made possible by our country coordinators, who are state national volunteers employed by the South African Assembly to organize and expedite the assembly process and the building of the four pillars of an assembly. In the assembly process, we are engaged in community building. We are not building a corporation. Corporate business structures do not apply. Let us all keep that firmly in view. There are jobs to do and functions to perform, but the principles of hierarchy and compartmentalizations are largely absent. Ideally, everyone in every assembly will know all the jobs and functions, and numerous people will be ready to fill vacancies and bulwark efforts as needed. Your state assembly should resemble a family gathering, as in essence, that is what it is, and what it is intended to be, an extended family of friends, relatives, and neighbors working together for their mutual long-term security and benefit of all. Let this be remembered as we move forward in our efforts, never commanding, but only ever leading by our example. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Serve thy brothers and sisters, and always do unto others as you wish to be done to you. Forgive transgressions, and be not the transgressor. Now to the task and the reason that we are all here today. The call to session of the South African Assembly, the countrywide assembly that will eventually be the home to all the men and women of the various districts of South Africa, men and women who will step forward to know and serve the people of their communities, the men and women who will build, piece by piece, one man or woman at a time, the committees that are the bricks of the four pillars. In the fullness of time, each district will have local committees forming the four pillars. Each of these committees will have elected people to serve on the National Assembly to ensure that all communities are served and recognized in their own rights. As the National Coordinator for the South African Assembly, I, Pierre Odendaal, now call on the following coordinators of Transvaal to answer the call to session. Do you, the coordinators for the Transvaal, agree to call to session of the National Assembly known as the South African Assembly, its four pillars, committees, and for the intents and purposes previously mentioned? What say ye? Evelisa Fuckley?
Yes.
Frankie de Souza?
Yes.
Isabella Katerina de Souza?
Yes.
Thank you. Henny Krugerhoff? Absent. As National Coordinator for the South African, I, Pierre Odendaal, now call on the state coordinators of the Orange Free State to answer the call to session. Do you, the coordinators for the Orange Free State, agree to the call to session of the National Assembly known as the South African Assembly, its four pillars, committees, and for the intents and purposes previously mentioned? What say ye? Johanna Martina
Yes.
van der Merwe,
Yes.
Amanda Fourie,
Yes.
Andrew Gavin Atkinson,
Yes.
Thank you. As National Coordinator for the South African Assembly, I, Pierre Oendal, now call on the state coordinators of Natal to answer the call to session. Do you, the coordinators for Natal, agree to the call to session of the National Assembly, known as the South African Assembly, its four pillars, committees, and for the intents and purposes previously mentioned? What say ye? Carolina Gabriel Miniart. Carolina?
Yes.
Thank you. Kevin Robert Miniart.
Yes.
Thank you. Michelle Christine Miniart.
Yes.
Thank you. And Zarina Miniart.
Yes.
Thank you very much. As National Coordinator for the South African Assembly, I, Pierre Oendal, now call on the state coordinators of the Cape as a whole to answer the call to session. Do you, the coordinators for the Cape as a whole, agree to the call to session of the National Assembly known as the South African Assembly, its fullers, committees, and for the intents and purposes previously mentioned? What say ye? Willem Andries Johannes Fourie.
Yes.
Nick Landman.
Chairman, it is Nico, N-I-C-O, but the answer is yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Nico. Sorry about your spelling mistake there. Bye, donkey. Abigail Landman.
Yes.
Thank you very much. All coordinators have answered in the affirmative, and the South African Assembly is now officially and formally in session. So let it be, and as it is done. Let the record show, through unanimous decision of all state coordinators, that the South African Assembly is now in full session, and that all efforts with none spared will be made to bring about the standing and seating of the South African Assembly and its four pillars. Wimpy, if you please.
Me, Wimpy Miller, the Marshal at Arms at peace, do witness this call to session, and do affirm that none were coerced, and all were volunteered with peace in their hearts, and with clarity of mind.
Thank you, Wimpy. Andries?
Me, Andries van der Linde, the Assembly Chairman-elect, do witness this call to session and do affirm that none were coerced and all were volunteers with peace in their hearts and with clarity of mind.
Thank you. Tommy?
Tommy Carter, the Land Recording Liaison Officer. Do witness this call to session and do affirm that no one was coerced and all were volunteers with peace in their hearts and with clarity of mind.
Thank you, everyone. This concludes the call to session for the South African Assembly. Let it be done and remembered. Thank you all.